Man, there's a lot of remakes these days, huh? I'm not complaining. Some of the best games over the last few years have been remakes. A good one balances the familiar and the unexpected, preserving what made the initial game special, while smoothing out rough edges, modernizing gameplay, and enriching the narrative with more robust characterization and world building. There are two styles that I find appealing, and it all depends on what kind of game is being remade. For a cult classic that never reached a mainstream audience, it's enough to merely tighten up visuals and mechanics without dramatically changing the story or structure. On the other hand, if it's already widely regarded as a masterpiece, a transformative approach is necessary in order to create a new game that can stand on its own merits. Nier was a rough diamond that many people, myself included, didn't give a shot. We didn't know it yet, but we missed out on something special. Nier Automata came along several years later and became a big success, so Square Enix smartly decided to take that rough gem and polish it to a mirror sheen. The result, Nier Replicant version 1.22474487139 ... achieves everything the original wasn't able to. It's a huge step up in terms of graphics and gameplay. Its cast of complex characters with deep bonds helps the plot hit huge emotional highs and lows. I mean, they're mostly lows. The music, composed by the genius Keiichi Okabe and others, uses vocals and a fictional language to create distinctive, heavenly soundscapes. While this remake does make some narrative changes, including adding a new ending, its primary reason for existing is to give us fools who skipped the original another chance to appreciate its powerful story. Not many people skipped Resident Evil 4. Almost 20 years later, it's still widely regarded as one of the greatest games ever made. For this reason, RE4 Remake is able to toy with player expectations in order to generate a renewed sense of tension. Some moments are perfectly preserved. Both the iconic battle in the village and the backs-to-the-wall cabin shootout recreate that frenzied feeling of being surrounded, nearly overcome, by seemingly endless waves of monsters, until finally you somehow survive and sweet relief washes over you. Other parts are remixed. The lake, for example, now gives you the freedom to explore various points of interest in whichever order you prefer. And while some memorable moments from the classic RE4 didn't make it into the new game, they're balanced out by completely different events, like Leon battling another Gigante atop the castle battlements. So much feels familiar, but there are enough of these surprises to keep the player constantly wondering what's around the next corner. RE4R's action is fast-paced and frenetic, thanks to modern controls, but the biggest game changer is the knife. As both a shield and a weapon, it's the most valuable tool in Leon's kit. I don't know how many people were asking for a parry mechanic in Resident Evil, but given that RE4 emphasizes big, loud action set pieces more than previous entries, being able to deflect projectiles, chainsaws, and gaping parasite maws just feels right. The knife is equally important for Leon's offense too. It's used to execute stealth kills, and most crucially, to finish off downed enemies before the parasite within pops out. But it's a limited resource, so you have to be thoughtful about how to use it. Rushing in to eliminate an enemy feels great, but is it worth it if it means being left vulnerable in the midst of a heated battle? Like the original, RE4R uses an impressive variety of encounters to keep you under relentless pressure. Everything about the way the knife is implemented raises the stakes even higher. It's not just the gameplay that's transformed though. The characters have new dimensions too. RE4R generally retains the original's over-the-top tone, but it uses its characters to ground the story ever so slightly. Ashley may not be an action hero like Leon, but she's no damsel in distress either. Her arc is about overcoming fear and carrying her weight as she and Leon fight their way out of a nightmare together. Leon, meanwhile, is still a cheesy guy tossing out endless one-liners,
Hasta luego.
but he's more than just that. I love this deep breath he takes after freeing Ashley on the island. For a brief moment, he's not an unstoppable badass. He's just a regular guy. Mowing down hordes of infected Spaniards isn't easy for him, and we all need a moment every now and then to compose ourselves. RE4R's characters feel human. They're easier to connect with, and that makes the story hit harder. What's really cool about all of the Resident Evil remakes is that they don't replace the games they're based on. Whether it's for the classic feel of the action, the even goofier tone, or simple nostalgia, There are many reasons why fans will return to the classic RE4 for years to come. Neither it nor the remake are the definitive RE4 experience. They're just different experiences, each with their own virtues. While we're on the topic of transformative remakes of all-time classics, we have to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. While RE4R largely tells the same story as the original, just with a bit more nuance, FF7R takes a radical approach to reinventing its narrative. And it has to, because Final Fantasy VII is totally driven by story and characters. FF7R doesn't want to be just a rote recreation, but it does want to make you feel the same way you did when you played the original for the first time. In order to achieve that, it makes changes both big and small that add new layers to the characters and their relationships, as well as create new suspense, mystery, and conflict. The most controversial change is Zack's fate. Somehow, somewhere, he is still alive. In the classic FF7, Zack is a weird character. He's absolutely core to the plot, but also a relatively minor character with minimal screen time. You don't get the chance to bond with him or even learn much about him. His starring role in the prequel Crisis Core is what made him a bona fide fan favorite. With that in mind, it's understandable that FF7R wants to better integrate him into the plot. Despite some curious and contentious storytelling choices, FF7R succeeds because it focuses first and foremost on its characters. At every turn, it shines the spotlight on its unparalleled cast. Giving Zack a more active role, and an actual character arc, is a golden opportunity to build even deeper bonds between him, Cloud, and Aerith. The potential for powerful emotional payoffs is enormous. There are also a million ways it could all go wrong, but as of right now, there's a solid foundation to build on. As long as FF7 Rebirth and beyond continue to prioritize character, the FF7R trilogy will thrive. So if RE4R sets the bar for what a remake should be, FF7R obliterates that bar. It's such a comprehensive reinvention that it belongs in its own category. There really isn't anything like it. What Square Enix is doing is so visionary that it's frankly unreasonable to expect anyone else to even attempt to match it. Maybe it sounds like hyperbole, but taking one of the greatest video games of all time and reimagining it as a trilogy that wants to have its cake and eat it too by retelling the original story while also layering a new story on top is pretty insane. Who knows if they'll be able to pay it off in a satisfying or even coherent way, but the undeniable quality of FF7R and the ambition of the project are encouraging and exciting. This is one of the most interesting and provocative ongoing projects in video games. It's proof that remakes don't have to be one-to-one recreations devoid of fresh ideas. They can propel their genres forward with bold, innovative creativity. I always kind of balk whenever someone says that a specific game doesn't need a remake. Like, yeah, the only games that need remakes are bad ones, and nobody wants those. All games age, but great games remain great games, even as time passes and technology advances. Resident Evil 4 is still super playable and a ton of fun, despite bad controls. Final Fantasy VII is visually dated, but the story, characters, music, and systems are as good as ever. Neither of them needed a remake. Their status as all-time greats is set in stone. But isn't it awesome to have reimagined modern takes on them? Fresh yet familiar experiences inspired by the originals that feel like you're playing your favorite game for the first time again. That's the magic that makes remakes so appealing.
Thanks, bud.